know that I'm going to have an air gap of a 1/2 inch for my insulation. I got to come up 7. Seven minus 2 3/4 is 4 1/4. That might work. Could we get a more crooked board?
Is it pretty crooked?
It's pretty crooked.
Probably could.
Okay, 58 1/4, that's my sill. See if we can get these protective pieces off. These are just shipping pieces. Try to get these off without opening up the gaps or seams. So this product is called Madeira. This is pre-finished trim and assembled at Sunrise. They pre-stained it in the Brazilian pecan to match the Brazilian pecan window that we purchased. And what's great about this assembly, this frame already assembled, first of all, obviously it saves a lot of time and labor from us doing it, but coming pre-assembled from the factory, they're able to assemble this frame. I'm just going to tilt this in for you. And when they do their assembly process, right here they actually put screws into the joints. If you look at the back side, they use a series of staples. And then same way on the extension jamb, they pin nail it and they also use screws. There should be a screw hole up in here. And then after all that is done, they do a caulk bead around the joint and then they putty all the holes and fill all the seams and joints. So when that window is ready for this trim, it'll go right in there, all pre-assembled. All I'm doing now is holding this up to get an idea of how I need to build this frame in. The old window was much bigger than the new window, so we're gonna build in the frame to get ready for the new window and to get ready for this trim. When I order this trim, I always measure the paint lines on the wall or the stain lines on the wall. If you look at the top here, this window opening is much taller than the new window is going to be. So we're actually going to center this up. We're going to build up the bottom, we're going to center it, and we're going to be just about like that. But what I'm looking to do again is to hide these stain lines. You can see where I'm talking about, where it's lighter here and darker here. I don't want to be able to see that. So I want my trim, my Madeira trim, to be out past that line so all of this gets hidden. So I always make sure that my trim covers that as best as we can. Let me get behind you here. I can foam and caulk and or insulate around a lot of things, but when we put two boards, a board on a board, I can't insulate between them. So we caulk between them because I have seen in the winter, I have seen ice build up on our trim because the air was flowing between the two boards of wood, and we did. So from then on, we've always sealed them with caulking. Sun's out, guns are out.
I can feel
right,
it.
Eric?
I'm gonna take my shirt off.
I was actually talking about.
Made me feel bad.
Yeah, I was actually talking about caulk guns, Eric. Slow down. Once you get it all formulated out, the finish ends up to be a lot nicer. By the time we get to the aluminum, hopefully the sun will be on the other side.
Yeah. Sweating, huh?
Yeah. It's a little warm now. The sun's.
It's a 2-inch extension jamb. Let's let the extension jamb tell us where to be. Oh, it's the stud. Stud's got a curve to it.
Oh.
Let's take these 3 out. Just want to be back like an 1/8 inch or so.
All right, same as the bottom there.
Yep, so we're not fighting it. And here we should have about 56.5 or so. Right there, 56 5/8. So that's good. Gives me a 1/2 inch for foam and insulation. And it fits. That's good. Remember that trim piece across on that other window? That's exactly what we're going to do across here, is that trim piece. All right, push yours in, Eric. There you go, now you're touching. Okay, Corey? All right. Can you get it to go that way a little bit more? Okay. I think I want to shim up this side here.
Yeah,
If you're hitting that jam on the bottom. Oh, you're talking about the sash versus frame? On awnings and casements, I like to put screws through the hardware to solidify this. To do that, this part of the window actually comes off. So we pop that off and that'll expose the hardware here, and there's places for the screws to go. There you go. Now that's ready to receive a couple fasteners. I'll want you to check the alignment outside once I get these set. Eric's out there, he can give me the feedback.
What's up?
I'm gonna set these 2 screws into the hardware and let me know how the alignment looks. Maybe I'll shim from the outside. So we're trying to look for reveal alignment between the sash and the frame. And so as you look here, it's nice and compressed, this weather strip. And then when you get down to here, I can actually see, I don't know if you see at the right angle, but I can see white in there. So I know that my frame needs to come up. And let's see if I can make that happen. So if I put the shim in there properly, it'll get you to the better compression. All right, let's put these shims in from the outside. I'm gonna pull these screws out. Actually, let me get these screws out of the way and then I'll close it and we'll just see if the shims are set right. All right, let's check this out and see if it works. Yeah, I like that a lot better. That compression looks consistent all the way across now. Okay, I'll go ahead and put the cap back on.
Okay.
All right, so what this is right here is a pipe reamer. This is actually used for copper piping and you can deburr the pipe. What we use it for are these holes where the screws are. We're going to put these covers to hide the hole, but you can see the burrs that are there. So we're actually going to use this tool to get in there and help clean that up. And now we've got a nice clean hole to put that cover in. A little piece of vinyl in there, there it comes. So now this should hopefully pop right in there. There you go. I can't like just go because this gets in the way and I don't want to nick it. See that little nick right there? I don't want to nick it with this. Anyway, so I can't just go real quick with this one on this design. But on the double hungs, the sliders, all the other windows that have these, I can just real quick go around it. And within a second, I have all the burrs off of there and I can put my covers on. So when I set the center screws, right now I have all the 4 corners done, so the positioning of the window's good, the window's very square. But when I set my centers, I don't want it to flex out or in. I want that proper reveal all the way through. So I'm gonna keep my eye on this reveal. I want the distance from here to here the same as it is from here to here. So to help me with that, I just put a little pressure on the window. And then as I tighten it, I can tell where I am. And that looks good there. Maybe just a fraction more. So I think my reveal all the way up looks and feels consistent. And then I can double check that from the outside as well. I'll look at the compression gasket and see if it's equally compressed all the way up and down when I do my outside inspection. Okay, so now we're out here, and again, I'm looking for a consistent compression all the way down. Looks pretty good. Same way on this side, I'm looking for that consistent compression all the way down. Now double checking the top, I actually do see a need for a shim here, and I'd like this top to come down. So we're gonna work on the top now and see if we can't get this compression to be a little tighter. Like the sides here, it's nice and tight, and I can see a little bit of a gap right here. It's a larger window, so that's why we wanna make sure that all the alignment is good. There's gonna be a lot of movement on this vinyl, and we want to control that with shims and screws. So that one goes in. See how it's not flush right there? So then we just grab our little hammer and you take a shim. That way you're not hitting on the window. So that's on nice and tight. We can double check operation, make sure nothing shifted on us. Any window that we have with a crank is called either a casement window or an awning window. In this case, this is an awning. An awning window opens like this. But the screens all are the same from this company called Sunrise. And basically there's two little pins, and you're just trying to get those little pins to go into the receiving slots. Same way over here. You can see the receiving slot in the background there. We're gonna push this in. I better disengage the pin first. There we go. And that should go right in like that. And same way with the top one. And I just put a little pressure like this when I do it, and then I push that in. And the reason why I put a little pressure on there is Sunrise actually has a little bit of weather stripping on this screen. And that weather stripping is for a few different benefits. First and foremost, it helps keep the bugs out. I'll show you the weather stripping here. But it has the weather stripping on here to help keep the bugs out. It also helps keep daylight out. Sometimes when people see daylight, they get a little nervous and think that there's something wrong. But the third thing is that it helps to keep the screen from rattling in the wind. So again, we have the receiver on the frame over here, and the pin is going to go right into that receiver. So all you do is you set the screen back in, and again, I'm just putting a little pressure on the screen to compensate for that weather stripping that's in there. Just a finger's worth of pressure, and that's it. And this mesh of this screen is actually called OptiView. And the OptiView mesh is finer. It is a little bit more delicate, so I always tell the homeowner it's for a mature household. So if you have a lot of kids or pets that are going to be messing with the screen, probably not going to hold up. But the finer mesh is great for the view, and it also, since it is finer and the squares are smaller, it prevents the smaller bugs from coming in. You can never prevent all of them. I mean, some of them are so small a screen can't prevent them. But the square holes are smaller, the screen mesh is finer. So the view is better, blocks insects better, and it actually allows better air movement. So you'll get a better flow of air through the OptiView mesh. So that's the three benefits to the OptiView mesh on a screen. All right, so this is actually, this color is called Brazilian Pecan. It's actually made by Sunrise. This had to be shipped up to Canada where they have their materials laminated, and they put this film on there. So you can see where the film starts and it wraps around onto the vinyl product to give you the wood grain look. It even has a texture to it. Like a real wood grain. But it's a non-repeating pattern. It has a nice look and feel, just like real wood. But this trim allows us to work on a window like this over here and cover a large area with the wood grain finish. So we'll be able to put this on here, and that will hide the 2x4 and the 1x4 that we have up here. And then our extension jamb comes out and our casing comes up, and then that hides then this paint line or stain line that we were talking about before. So that's how we're going to handle this. Foaming is one of the most important parts of the job, in my opinion, and it doesn't always expand the way you think it's going to expand, and sometimes you need to go back over it, and then sometimes it expands way more than you expect, and then you got to clean up on your hands. So we have already foamed from the outside. Now we're going to do the inside. So that gives you 2 layers of foam, and then it creates an air pocket between the 2 layers of foam. And anytime you can create air pockets, you're creating a better insulated value. Almost a half. So we're going to bring that down. I want 7/16. There it is. And 7/16. Making sure everything is set deep enough. If it's not, then you have to get your nail punch and hammer out and set it deeper and try to make it clean. So when it's time to put the putty in there, there's enough of a hole for the putty to adhere to. So sometimes it's better to actually make a bigger hole, again, just so there's more room for the putty to go into. So I have this trim cut for the top of the window, 54 and just a hair over a half. On the back of the trim, they actually have 3 score lines already pre-scored at the factory. And what that helps you do is you can pick one of those score lines if you need this to be a little smaller, which we do. And you can just work it all the way down, and as you work it, it is starting to separate. So that's the nice thing about this pre-made trim. I love those score lines on there, and that'll allow us to actually snap this right where we want it to be. Now with this extra wood grain vinyl laminate on there, sometimes I don't want it to break in half. In this case I do, but in some cases I don't, being a little stubborn right here. So as you bend this, you can actually make an L out of it when it has this laminate on it. And so if I needed some L trim, I needed some trim to go this way and this way, it works out pretty good. And then I put the double-sided tape on both sections of it, and then it'll hold nice and tight and give you a nice finished look that way. So on occasion, you do need it to be in both directions. This job, we're just gonna remove this section and make it 2 separate pieces. I only need the large piece. So the small piece we'll just save for another job, another day. We'll just give it a nice clean cut. Sometimes this will actually just snap off and I don't even need to cut it. But today we're cutting it. Okay, so that'll be my finished trim at the very, very top. All right, well, I made a mistake. I actually should have been lower. I went over to the other window and I measured that one and I just duplicated what they did on that window. But I think the distance from here to here might be different than what they had. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'd actually like my trim to be down here a little bit. And the reason why is because I want the entire amount of this tape on that vinyl. If only part of this tape is touching that vinyl, there's a good chance that this will peel off. And once it's set, I want it to be set forever. I don't want to ever have to come back with a phone call from the customer saying, hey, the trim is falling off, because then it makes you look cheap. It looks like you didn't care or you did something wrong. So I definitely would like to see this down here to get better adhesion on that tape. When you're putting up the vinyl trim, you wipe everything down with denatured alcohol, and that will open up the pores of the vinyl that you're going to adhere this to, and plus clean it, of course, from any dust and debris. And that will help to activate, along with heat, the adhesive that's on this tape. So here we're just going to put this up tight, get that started. Just keep it nice and tight to keep the gaps as small as possible. And then when you rub it, that creates friction and warms it up, hopefully enough to activate that adhesive. And when we first started using this product, we did have a problem with some of these coming off and having to go back and redo them. But we've learned the tricks and the proper way to install it. A lot of it had to do with you need to clean it with that denatured alcohol. That's not an option. You have to do that. And the other thing that is a must is the amount of tape that is on that surface, like we talked about a minute ago. You have to have full contact with that 3/4 inch roll of double-sided tape. It has to have that entire amount on that flat surface to hold on to. And that concludes the inside until the only thing that we have left to do is if we want to clear caulk it, and that'll finish it off. Oh yeah, and we need to putty our holes, our nail holes. So that's our finished detail that we still need to do. Any of the excess I will just wipe right off. I had Corey cut this tip for me and he cuts it a little sharper than I do. I like not quite as much of an angle on the tip.